Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Portals live event, Your Soul and Your Brain, an Essential Courtship. My name is Peter, and I'm here today with members of the Portals of Perception team, Lisa, Kyriaki, Emmy, and Patrick, to delve into the writing of Aviv Shahar, Portals into the Soul, specifically Chapter 5, The Soul Courting the Brain, which we've recently published on our website. And you can find all the chapters and much more of this work on portalsofperception.org and, of course, on our YouTube channel. So I want to set this conversation up a bit. And we could say that we've all grown up in a world that puts tremendous emphasis on our brain. So much so that we hardly make the distinction between our brain and ourselves, between our brain and who we are. And the Portals into the Soul writing offers a new view of that it's really our soul that should be helping us orchestrate and guide our lives, not our brain. And that by reclaiming this proper role for the soul, we really need to establish a different relationship with our brain. Hence, the courtship between our soul and brain. So today, that's where we're going to take this exploration. We're glad you're with us, and we hope you find it as fascinating as we do. So welcome, everyone. I'm glad you're here.
Great, Peter. Great to be with you all from Athens, Greece. And if you're listening live, please say hi from where you're from. We're always glad to hear where you come from. And if there are any questions or inquiries in relation to this special work, which we call the Portals into the Soul series, well, we'll be glad to collect your inquiries and questions and insights. So yes, I find this chapter very fascinating because it deals with a delicate matter of how to speak to our brain. And I think our brain is really maybe a very, very intelligent part in our orchestra. And what is mentioned in this chapter is how to learn to speak with it in a way that the brain can assist the purpose of our soul and the function of our soul, which is threefold. It has to do with keeping our well-being, helping our growth, and helping us find and flourish with the best of our qualities and purpose. But the brain, it seems, I imagine it a bit like a very intelligent student in a class. And if the soul is the teacher and it doesn't give to that very intelligent student some challenge, then probably this student will find the class boring and will try to find something else to stimulate its interests. So I think it's very wise, this practice that is shared of naming our brain, giving a name to our brain and speaking to it, developing a relationship. And there is this wonderful bargaining with the brain that Aviv suggests, which says, I will give it what it wants after it gives me what I need. So I'm thinking, of examples where maybe in our life, in our everyday life, we can find ways to develop this relationship so that our brain knows what we want from it, because it loves to serve us. It wants to serve us. And it doesn't go, to play games or do other things, distract us from what we really want to do, but actually help us and assist us. And yeah, I'm trying to think of live examples in relation to, maybe you want to suggest something so that I can understand it a bit more practically, how we can, in a way, program our brain in a welcoming way, and then also reward it. Also say thank you to our brain when it does the work. But I don't know how did you read this? What caught your attention in this chapter, in this dialogue with the brain?
Well, yeah, one of the things right off the bat is this idea that we are not our brain. It's not the master of us. It's part of us. It's um, part of our apparatus, part of our tool set that we use to navigate life. And we all know it can work for us or against us, depending. I was trying to write novels early in my life, and I would wake up every morning and I'd sit at my desk and have a big cup of coffee, ready for the day. And I can't tell you how often I started to fall asleep as soon as I kind of got serious and settled in. And Aviv makes that exact point in this chapter, that for whatever reason, the brain isn't interested in that moment and wants to do something else, wants to distract you, wants to either go to sleep or turn on a video game, whatever it is, read something or look at your phone. But I was very startled in the old days that this happened to me so often, because it was first thing in the morning. I just got up. And to see it in this chapter and say, okay, that's what was going on. If I'd known this those years ago, that would have been very handy for me to talk to my brain in that moment and say, look, I appreciate that maybe you want to do something else, but we're going to do this for X amount of hours, and then we can do something that will entertain you a little bit. And because we live in this world of great entertainments and great stimulation, our brain has really um, gotten accustomed to getting those endless treats. So we really, speaking to our brain is kind of a way of reclaiming that, bringing it back in as something that can support us rather than lead us around by the nose, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's so interesting, Peter, because what I was thinking about this morning in preparation of meeting you all was the title, where it says courting your brain. And with the soul, we've been talking more about companioning your soul. And I started to think, well, what is the difference between companioning and courting? And we kind of think like our brain has a life of its own. And I think that's what you were referring to, Peter. It's like, well, my brain wants to do this. So I started to do a little research on what courting meant. It's like wooing, like almost like, okay, come on, brain, come be with me. I'm going to give you some stimulation. I'm going to make you happy. So it's really fascinating to think about it, because it's a lot different than the way I was thinking about working with my soul. And I just love the idea of giving my brain a name, which Aviv suggests, which I did. So when I wake up in the morning, I have this little conversation. I call my brain Brainy Girl. Good morning, Brainy Girl. And so I can get sort of closer to my brain and feel like we're one and that we're working together. So, it's just it's a starter. this whole idea of working with the brain and companioning it, and courting it ultimately is a starter. But it's, as they say, once you start to make, make an intention to be with something or do something, understand something, as with this brain soul relationship, it opens up so many different thoughts and ideas and possibilities.
Okay, so I will admit I have trouble with my brain a lot. And so I really enjoyed reading through Aviv's perspective, especially the explanation that we have to remember. So our brain is captive. It's inside this skull, and it loves stimulation. It just loves to be stimulated. And it always wants to take things in because it is so smart. And what it does for us is just incredible. And so I have trouble because oftentimes, like when I have a project to do, like a big writing project, I have a lot of them. I need to be able to focus. And sometimes you're working on a project, part of it's really exciting. You get to the part that's really boring. It takes more research. It isn't fun. And it's at that moment when I get a little bit bored, my brain kicks in. And suddenly I'm wanting to go to YouTube and see what the latest short is. I'm wanting to go to television. I'm wanting to go to music. I'm wanting to do anything else except what I need to get done in that moment, which is finish this writing project. So I found that it's really good. This whole thing about talking to my brain, I actually do it. I speak out loud. And it helps me if I can like break things into projects. So if I'm going to start like a big writing project for the day, I'll say, okay, this is what we've got to get done today, brain. We've got to focus. And I promise, if we just get through this section and get this done, then we can play. And I promise my brain playtime after we get the work done. And I say, okay, and then you got to stick to that. So if I'm going along and I find myself getting distracted, I'll say, come on, brain, we had a deal. We get back to it. And it really helps me if I can, it's almost like the brain is my assistant. And I have to keep reminding it what I'm doing. Otherwise, it's going to go off and get distracted. And so I like the idea of talking to my brain and realizing that the brain is very powerful. It's inquisitive, and you can work with your brain in really good ways. Like say, hey, brain, I don't know what to do here. I need ideas. And then you talk to your brain and you try to make it really clear what you need. And your brain will help you, unless your brain wants to help you. But if you don't talk to it, I think, if you like take it for granted that it's just there and you start doing whatever it is you need to do, the brain is going to assert itself and remind you that it's there. It needs its stimulation, please. And can we do something different? And that's when you can talk to your brain and bargain with it. So I take this down to like a really practical level. If I have something to do in front of me, a task, I'll say, brain, we've got to get this done and work through it in a way that I can actually, and it does work, especially once you start talking to your brain and you have a name for it and you kind of visualize it as an assistant that's kind of just sitting there waiting for something to do. You can start bringing it in more actively into what you do, and it will start interfering less. But it does take practice. And the brain is a funny thing. The brain knows if you're serious or not. So if I start this whole thing of brain, I need your help and let's focus. And if I let it start wondering, it knows that. So you've got to have a little bit of discipline and introduce to the brain the idea that you're in charge. You need its help and you're working together. You're working together on something. But it does take practice and you have to be really focused about it and I think make a really serious attempt. And you start to notice, you do notice the habits of your brain will change over time.
So that's great. I have a quick question, Patrick, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
So do you find that if you've got a lot to do, if there's too much to do, that the brain just gets like, maybe not confused, but overwhelmed? How do you avoid overwhelming your brain?
I get overwhelmed all the time so easily. It doesn't take much to overwhelm me, and my brain knows that. It's what I need to do is if things come in, I need to note that they're there, but I just put it aside, consciously saying, no, I can know that's there. I'll get to that later, and I do what I can to stay focused on what needs to get done first. This is my priority. This done, then this, then this. If I'm organized in my mind about what's most important, and I actually focus on that, then I can pull the brain and say, let's do this first. Don't get distracted by the phone call, the text, people wanting our attention. We'll get to that later. It seems to help. What do you do?
I cry. No.
I understand that.
Actually, what I do, to be honest, is I make a list. And what I tend to do at night before I go to bed, I actually even could do it in my bed, is I do my to-do for the next day. Because if I have so much to do, but I'm not clear and I might forget something, but once I make that list, and I'm just thinking about this now because I never thought about it before, but I think it puts my brain to rest, knowing that I've got my to-do list and I may not even get through everything, but I know it's there. And then if I go the next night and I know that I had a lot to do and I didn't get it all, I'll pull up, the day's list. I'll cross out what I did, move over what wasn't done, add to it what's needed. And I think that settles my brain now that I'm thinking of it.
Yeah, I think you just hit on a really important point in that the brain needs to be settled. And once you start working with your brain, it needs to know that you're serious because it knows us. And so if it sees that like I'm aware of what's going on around me, and like you, I set priorities. I don't do like a list, but I set priorities. I think that really helps settle the brain if it's confident that you're in charge. And like you know what you're doing, we've got a list. Okay, she kind of knows what she's doing today. I'll jump in and I'll help. Because I think if it gets the sense that we're scattered, it doesn't know what to do. And then it starts going off and then it'll be easily distracted by a million different things happening around us.
So that's great because we talk about soul settlement. Now I can think about brain settlement.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks
so much, Patrick.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm really enjoying it. And I will share with you why. Because the moment you asked this question, Lisa, to Patrick, I thought, that's we call it open goal. You can score. Because in my experience, that's where the soul could come in. I had an experience today where I had many things to consider. And I thought, how am I going to solve this all together? And then I turned to my soul. And I thought, oh yeah, that's the conductor of my orchestra. And the conductor knows what to do. And under the orchestration of this soul, my soul, things became more quiet. And I thought, then also priorities came in. But I was so happy at that moment that we are tying the relationship between the soul and the brain closer. Because if the brain tends to take over, there is the soul who can take charge and settle the whole orchestra. And to answer the first question, what caught you most in this chapter? This courting really caught me. And it helped me to think about what kind of a brain I am. Because if you want a courtship between soul and brain, you need to know what they're like. So a different appreciation for my brain arose. And another point that hit me in this chapter was the importance of praising your brain. if it has performed well. And I have an example. We have a dog, and it was shaking its little rig that it has around its body. I don't know if that's the right name. And so I wanted to loosen it up, and it needed to be done quickly because we were about to go out, and it didn't work. So later on, when we came home, I looked at it and I thought for a moment about my brain and the trust I had in my brain. So I saw that the part of the rig that was double needed to be shortened so that the whole length would be longer. But something kept it in place. So then my brain realized that I needed to move the part that kept the whole construction in place. And when I had done that, I talked to my brain and I was really proud that it did it. And I think I even said out loud, if you can do this, I know you can do more things. And I felt it's very important to talk to your brain like that you say, okay, you're good, you did that well, I will count on you more often. And so I felt this contentment of the brain as well as the soul, because there was patience to get it solved. That's it for now.
Yeah, the thing that keeps coming to me is this idea of the role. I think, in my experience, everything likes to know what its role is. You know, someone in the a child in the family wants to know what its role is. An animal, if you want to train it, they are invariably happier when they understand what you want from them. And um, you know, in an office setting, in a work setting, in a group, all these situations, understanding our roles is so important to the well-being of whatever that organism is. And so I think what this portals into the soul work is starting to do is show us what are the roles going on inside our life. So we have the role of the soul, and if we let it assume that role, and then we say to the brain, okay, this is how you can support this greater picture of our life and what we're trying to accomplish, who we want to be. And we can do that with these ongoing conversations and relationship building. I think that clarity of role is probably a beautiful settlement, probably brings a lot of peace and quiet to the whole system. Um, and another aspect, which Patrick was mentioning, you've got to follow through because, you know, just like an animal, if you want to teach your pet dog to not beg at the table, but every now and then you say, "Oh, here's a scrap," you'll ruin that understanding. So you have to follow through. If you say, "Okay, we're going to do this work for now, and then we're going to have some entertainment," you've got to follow through, and you've got to prove yourself trustworthy to your brain, and then your brain will be more trustworthy and confident in what the plan is.
So just a quick question, Peter, because there may be people with us today that haven't joined us before, and this is their first time. You did mention the role of the soul. I know we're concentrating on the brain today and the soul, but maybe we could give a little premise on the soul for those who may not have been on before.
Yeah, well, absolutely. In chapter 1, Aviv puts forward 3 urges of our soul. And the first urge is to keep us alive. It's our instinct for survival. And the next urge is um, our growth. It's how do we grow and what do we pursue, and What do we learn and how do we evolve in our life? And it steers us to things. We all have chosen, I'm going to take this path or that path, and it comes down to our unique configuration. And our soul is, I think, very instrumental in helping us find our best way through the maze of life, because we do have talents and skills and tendencies that can be fulfilled and brought out. So that's another urge, is to be this steward of learning. And the third urge is the champion of our greater purpose. So once we begin to get in touch with what our skill set is and why we are passionate about these subjects or doing these kinds of things, we can get an insight into what our greater purpose in life, as a service to life and as a service to our own expression. So we have that big umbrella of the soul working constantly in the background, and then the soul wants to work with these other aspects of our life, the brain, the intuitions, the senses, and make this orchestra, which Aviv speaks of, to be harmonious and in tune.
Beautiful. That's a great explanation. It comes to mind, the word intimacy. It's a very intimate relationship with your soul that can be grown and nurtured. Beautiful. Thank you for that, Peter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wanted to add, in relation to the brain, let's say with the first life that wants to keep us alive, wants to keep us in, let's say, somatic well-being. And so maybe we decide that we want to wake up early in the morning and go for a walk or go to the gym or go for a swim or do something that is for our physical well-being. But the brain says, no, I'm going to sleep more and I'm going to eat donuts. And so it may wants to fight us. So we can make there a bargain with our brain. We can say we're going to do that for 3 days, and for the other 2 days, we're going to let it relax. And the same with learning. For instance, someone may want to study to become a doctor, but the brain may, direct it to some other stimuli, and so the person who would want to study that will need to find a discipline and study habits. So that needs training the brain stamina or the brain memory or various forms of learning that are necessary for that skill. Or a dancer, for example. So, and in relation also to our purpose and to our higher quality, our brain may take us to a completely different pathway. So really, I think the soul needs to take over. And a good example is the orchestra conductor that has many instruments, or has some instruments that do solos. And Amy knows much better than me because she plays in orchestras. If the conductor doesn't know really where the essence of the musical piece sits, and doesn't know how to direct and balance the different instruments and also reward the different instruments, and definitely the soloist, if there is a soloist like the brain, and give it also some space, then he loses, or she loses, the control of the situation. And not the best music and harmony can come out. So this is what I would add. And there is, I see a comment from Ursula. It's clear baby brain's abilities develop depending on the opportunity it is given.
Mm.
What would our educational systems look like if brain could develop its versatility of left and right domains? Yes, that actually will be opened in chapter 6, Ursula. So we need to wait for that, where we will open up more how to combine thinking and feeling. So that's a bit ahead on the way, but we'll come to that. So we are in the first step, let's say, of building this relationship. But it's a very, very valid question. Thank you for adding that.
There's like one sort of bigger idea that might be helpful to look at a bit. And that is the fact that we keep saying, you know, we're not our brain, we're not our soul, we're not this, we're not that. And so people may wonder, I always wonder, so, you know, what is the me of me? What am I? Because we have many, many inner lives. And I don't know if I have an answer to that. But I'm thinking it helps me if I remember that we have inner lives, many of them. We have a soul, we have a brain, and they are this amazing resource that we have and we can work with every day in our lives. If we become aware of actually what's inside of us, what makes us up as a human being, then we realize we have a soul and we want to start exploring, what can a soul do for me? And same with the brain. It's just this amazing, powerful resource. And it needs training. It needs for us to be aware that it's there and it's part of our sort of inner lives, our inner conclave. And when it knows that we're actually aware of it, I mean, it can do amazing things. So I like the idea of courting because, you know, we're trying to get it more active into our lives and it's going to have what it wants from us. And it's a back and forth kind of relationship. But it kind of really helps me to remember that it's just one of many things that we have inside of us, but it is there and we can work with it. It's a life, it's an inner life. And we can work with it to help us, you know, whatever it is we want to do with our life. We have all these components that are just dying to help us if we only knew that they were there and gave them a chance to come in.
Well, to me, it's as simple as the idea that, you know, if you suddenly get interested in purchasing a new car, you'll begin to see that car everywhere. You weren't noticing it before, but now you are. And that's, I believe, a response from the brain. Okay, the brain has picked up on what your interest was. And so it's feeding it back to you. And so whatever we are interested in, we can, you know, have this conversation with our brain and say, okay, you know, by the end of the year, I want to accomplish this. So we're going to work on it every day, and you know, or we are looking for a new car. Keep your eyes out for you know, this model, and so we can treat our system, we can treat ourselves as this team, really the teamwork of the journey through life, and it makes us feel probably much more stable and secure to have all this kind of support, inner support, and aspects of ourselves that we can turn to. You know, that when we have a need or a challenge that we are facing. So I think, you know, that relationship over time deepens and can be very, very stabilizing for what we are trying to accomplish.
And if I may add some benefits I experienced, increased stamina and resilience because of knowing what bonus is waiting and just struggling forward till the task is finished. And if you haven't read or seen the chapter yet, I would really recommend it because it has a strong effect on well-being.
Yeah, well, it's always great to get together and just have these impromptu conversations. And I leave with such a wonderful quest to know more. So yes, Emmy, I do suggest people go to the website, and I think Peter will post that site so that you can hear more about the brain, about the soul, and so many different aspects of understandings.
Yeah, well, thank you all for being here today. This is a vast subject, and we're just teasing a little bit about it. And there's so much more. The whole Portals into the Soul, the 5 chapters and the preamble are on the website, portalsofperception.org. They're on our YouTube channel. And if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll be notified anytime we have a live pop-up event like this. So we're happy you joined us. We look forward to the next time we see you. Thanks for all being here, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Till next.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.